Assalamu alaikum, Fahad. Thank you very much for joining in. Assalamu alaikum, Sajjeed. Thanks a lot for joining in for today's session. I think it's 3:02. We have given everybody the liberty of 2 minutes because of Ramadan to join in for the session if somebody is running late. So once again, thank you very much, Fahad, and thanks a lot, Sajjeed, for joining in for today's session. And Assalamu alaikum, everyone else who has joined in for today's session, co-organized by Al-Mabrook Financial and Sustainadility. My name is Hina Nasir. I'm a partner at Sustainadility and your moderator for today's session. I'm thrilled to have all of you for what promises to be a truly insightful discussion. Just a quick few notes before we kick off the session. We have started the recording for the session. I want to make sure that everybody is aware. All the attendees will be receiving a certificate of attendance. For any questions that you might have from the speakers, you can please park it in the comments section, and we are going to have a dedicated question and answer session at the end of the session. One more very critical announcement is that all the conversation that is going to be happening today is for the purpose of building insights and awareness during the session, and this cannot be taken as an investment advice from any perspective. Before we dive in, I wanted to highlight something significant. This session is being held right after the signing of an MOU between our two speakers organization. Sustainability. Sajjeed is representing Sustainability, and Fahad is representing Mabrook. And unlike most of the MOUs that we see all around, this MOU wasn't taken as a formality. It basically signifies a powerful convergence, keeping in view Sustainability's expertise in ethical capital frameworks and AI, Al-Mabrook's cutting-edge Islamic tokenization infrastructure. We are basically witnessing the architecture of a new financial ecosystem being built in real time, and that makes today's conversation incredibly timely. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. First of all, Sajjeed Aslam. He's a partner at Sustainadility. Sajjeed is a fellow chartered accountant and brings deep expertise in aligning Sharia principles with the global ESG agenda, engineering data ecosystems for ethical capital. Welcome, Sajjeed. And then we have Fahad Siddiqui, who is a founder and CEO of Al-Mabrook Financial. Fahad is a pioneer in translating Islamic finance into digital realm, with Al-Mabrook providing IOFI accounting and auditing organization for Islamic financial institution, compliant institutional grade platform for real world tokenization assets. Welcome, Fahad. So I gave a preamble that an MOU was signed recently. So before we kick off the session, I would like us to basically establish that what was the gap that you saw in the market that brought Sustainability and Mabrook on the table. And we can start off with that. Sajjeed, we can take your views first, and then we can go to Fahad.
Thank you, Hannah. Assalamu alaikum. I think the most important thing, we are working in the sustainability space now for a while. It's over 6 to 7 years when we are working in a different part of the world. And the one thing which keeps coming out again and again, that there are a lot of opportunities exist out there to create an impact on the environment or social side. But most of the time, the capital flow is not aligned specifically for those kind of projects, which can provide a decent ROI, sometimes above market ROI, but those projects require a certain type of capital or a flow of capital, which currently the institutional capital which we see, they may not have those kind of projects on their radar. So that's created a second option for us, that how that climate finance as well as the impact capital can be channelized towards the projects which are ready, which have got impact and which have brought a financial ROI as well. And the quantum of that, if I just share the number, that runs in trillions. So if we look at even the recent requirement of affordable housing, we are talking about somewhere 268 million units which are short as per the World Bank data set. So if we are talking about 268 million units, we can't expect the institutional capital or any other regime which can channelize that kind of capital today. And we are talking about 1.1 billion people who are staying in or living in a slum, and they need that immediate relief to really live the similar life like anybody who have a decent access to the capital is living. And then there is a government mandate as well, but the government does not have, again, the capital for that kind of area. The second part, we are trying to stay in the Islamic finance domain. We are trying to really promote the Sharia compliant and ESG aligned capital. So that's where the Al-Mabrook come as one of a key partnerships which tick all the boxes for us, and that also help us to channelize the capital towards those use cases or those verified projects which are bankable right now, but they need a huge capital which cannot come from a one institution or even a consortium of the institution. So we foresee the climate funds, impact capital, individual investor and institutional capital investor, they all can really converge in terms of using a tokenization as a one of a tool. And if we are using a Sharia compliant tokenization, that's basically something which really excites us. And that's where this partnership was created. And we believe that we are making progress on an everyday basis towards execution and creating a framework which can help everybody.
Thank you, Sajjeed. The affordable housing issue that you brought up, I'd like us to take that conversation in the rest of the questions also. So this will become a use case that everybody can relate to. So Fahad, coming to you, one, we're talking about the gaps there exist in the market. And number two, those gaps or the space that you saw that Sustainadility and Mabrook can fill in. And also, Sajjeed also mentioned, integrating Sharia, sustainability, and capital flow. How does that basically integrate the whole conversation for you?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Hina and Sujit. So I think it's a very ideal in alignment, I would say. Because if we go to Islamic principle or Sharia compliance, they are already ESG compliance, right? So they are basically aggregating all the ESG compliance. Example, when you are when we are doing, let's say, a project and the project is something to do with the real estate and we are digging the ground, so we need to make sure that the proximity is intact, the ecosystem is intact. So we have to provide the proof and certification and whatnot, right? So I think it's an ideal environment, and this is where the partnership, the strong muscle of sustainability come and then integrate with Mabrook. Why? Because Mabrook is lagging to provide an evidence to an ordinary investor that how this project is ESG compliant, right? So I think that's like an ideal fit, and for us it was like a missing piece in the whole puzzle.
That sounds like a perfect match, made in heaven.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. So just coming back to you, sustainability basically speaks of a shift from Sharia compliant to Maqasid aligned. For our audience perspective, what does the distinction mean in practice, like in real life or in the real use cases? And what does it mean for how capital gets allocated to different projects?
Interesting dynamics. I think the first, what we have to establish and understand, anything which qualifies as a Sharia compliant by default qualify for ESG, given, full stop. Anything which is Sharia compliant is ESG compliant by default. Number two, there is when we look at the capital allocation models, the way it's happening today, we are seeing the Islamic finance is emerging as one of a new area, although still, if you look at the total investment space, it's still low. It's somewhere like $5 trillion. If you look at the overall $45 trillion investment in totality, but it's something which is emerging. And the number two, the one thing which the world or the asset managers or the investors have to understand is currently when you go and you look at the ROI side. So most of the time, the ROI is higher than the conventional investment model. And this is where sustainability come into play, that how we can generate all those data sets and evidences which are aligned with the global reporting standard, number one. Then it's aligned with the local regulatory regimes as well. Like if you are, again, take an example of affordable housing, Affordable housing doesn't mean that it has to like only it should be affordable. There has to be a proper living, right? I mean, the space you are per person space you are allocating there, the facilities you are bringing there. So how you can make sure that people are having access to the decent living, right? And at the same time, somebody has to make a payment and somebody has to make a return out of it. At the same time, we have to make sure the environmental impact of that, like Fahad mentioned earlier, so we can understand that environmental impact and what we can do to make sure that we reduce that carbon footprint. As soon as we start reducing the carbon footprint, the first thing which comes to the mind is basically we are avoiding the certain wastage, whether it's term of energy, or water, or recycling the waste and using all the materials in a way which can reduce the construction cost as well as operating cost. That's mean the affordability is not only about how we are constructing it, it's also about how the operating cost of that housing will be maintained in the future. And at the same time, what is the standard? So right now, the affordable housing is not a one of a area which has got a very standardized definition, and that's why we are working on that framework as well. That what does affordable housing mean? What are the features that which have to be there? As soon as it's standardized, you can do the costing right, you can do the data management right, and you can create all the visibility, transparency, and auditable information for the investor, regulator, and the policy maker. And when we look at the Sharia side of it, so because something which we are trying to do, or the area which we are working, that is very close to what the God has asked us to do, to just make sure that collectively, that's the key term, collectively we can make sure that we are helping each other and helping everybody to uplift socially as well as economically. So this tokenization bring that aspect to the table as well, that fraction, when I convert the one asset into the fraction, that's been a very, I'm taking away the barrier of the huge amount, right? So I can even invest $100 and I can start participating in that investment as well as the return coming out of this one. So I can invest based on my affordability towards the area where I can create a better social uplift and economic uplift for the people around the world. And that tokenization, the second part, I don't have to be in the same country or same city or same vicinity. I can do that from anywhere in the world. So that's mean it gives me another enablement and empowerment that if I want to invest in Africa, I can do that. If I want to invest in London, I can do that while sitting in Middle East, Pakistan, or Canada. Right? I don't have to be there. So that's the entire ecosystem which help us to channelize the capital in a way which can help the humanity to do the things in a better way. Even for the commercial project, I can take another use case. Sorry, I take another minute or so. If I'm doing a trading transaction and I'm moving a halal food from Thailand to Saudi, and that's a one shipment which has to go. So the one trade transaction, even I can fund that kind of trade transaction using a tokenization as a one model that enables the channelizing the capital towards a certain supply chain which was not available, or that investment opportunity was not available to me as an investor, and that capital flow was not available to the customer and the vendor who are doing those transactions. So, and at the same time, given our ability, we can track end to end that what kind of carbon footprint or social impact that trade has generated, right? So that gives the entire ecosystem a comfort and transparency that how their money is being used and how they are making money out of it, and that brings the ethical returns towards the investment they are making at whatever size they want to contribute towards that investment.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, Sajjeed. You started the conversation with a very important point that I want to bring to Fahad also. You said anything that's Sharia compliant is by default ESG compliant and vice versa. Is that something that is universally accepted or tried and tested?
Sorry, it's not vice versa. So
Okay.
not every ESG transaction is Sharia compliant, but every Sharia compliant transaction is ESG aligned.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. Thank you very much. Fahad, I'd like to come back to you. One of the most important clarification we generally make is that when we are talking about real world tokenizations, these are not cryptocurrencies in general, right? For institutional investors, who are cautious about digital assets in general, why does this distinction basically matter, and how does that change the overall risk profile for them?
Very good question. So cryptocurrency like Bitcoin,
I'm
Ethereum.
very pro when we're talking about cryptocurrencies.
Everybody get excited when they hear about cryptocurrency. So just continuing to the question, your question was that what is the difference between an RWA, a token which is backed by sustainability, and then our real world asset, and what is the core difference? So I will just repeat that the currency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, whatever it is, some people around the globe, they say Bitcoin is a digital gold of today. They are just like cash, but they don't have any underlying assets, right? And this is where the beauty of you guys come in, where you are providing not only a real world asset, but it comes with the proof of being ESG compliance. That's a big delta right now. Not many people do that. So coming back to it, and the cryptocurrency, it's largely depends on the market sentiments, speculations, um, and then this sometimes leads to volatility as well, right? Not many cryptocurrencies have been surviving. There are a couple of few, maybe 10, 15s. They have been surviving for a long time. And then there are some regulatory concerns as well around it. So I would say that speculation, volatility, fiduciary or the regulatory concerns. Some people, on our side, Islamic finance, we see it as a gambling speculation, hardcore. Where you guys come in when we tokenize with your assets, right? Let's say a green housing project or green infrastructure. Then we are basically putting a tangible asset on chain. So unlike a cryptocurrency where it is used for some payments or cash, here what we are doing is that those tokens are called security token, and they are Sharia compliant. They are going to follow some IFI compliance around it, and they will be backed by the real world asset. The moment we do this, now we are reducing the volatility. Why? Because whatever the real, if the asset is a high quality asset such as an ESG asset, of course it will not be highly volatile like cryptocurrency because it will be based on the real pricing of the asset, right? And those token on chain will not only come with having an asset backing, but now they will be coming in with a proof of evidence that how they are as ESG compliant. So we're going to also embed those information on those token. Unlike cryptocurrency, which does not entail anything to do with the ESG, I mean, the best they could do is that somebody can issue a cryptocurrency on an ESG compliant blockchain, right? Now, Mabrook is on a Polygon blockchain, which is already sort of a ESG compliance. It does not use a lot of energy, but now we are having a big advantage of having you guys where your token becomes like a first ESG Sharia compliant token across the globe, right? They are backed by the asset. They are low volatile. They are regulated because anything to do with Mabrook when we are tokenizing will come regulated. So now not only we are giving an ESG Sharia compliant token to the investors, potential investors, but we are also giving them the extra peace of mind that whatever we are doing or you are buying, it's regulated. That's like a big difference, right? And of course, the Sharia alignment of it. I don't think so many cryptocurrency are Sharia compliant today. So 2 billion Muslim across the globe or ESG receptive investors, they are looking for such ideal product.
Brilliant. That personally helps me a lot, basically. So once options like these come out in the market, so people who are scared to take risk when investing in cryptocurrency, but they also don't want to have that FOMO, the fear of missing out. So these are the kind of options with regulations, with solid real world assets that can be traced back to its physicality. I think those you're absolutely right that will give everybody a comfort of mind that will manage their risks also. So that was really helpful. I think everybody in the audience will agree with me on that also. And coming back to the point that Sajjeed was raising earlier, because we were talking about tokenization. So that also removes the barrier where small scale investors, individual investors, they can also jump in, starting even from, for example, $100, and they can invest in the kind of projects that they believe in. So that's very helpful. Thank you very much, Fahad, for that. Sajjeed, we were if we try to connect the conversation that we picked up earlier, the infrastructure that's required to deliver these tokenizations, RWAs, managing the access to the community, and the actual projects that will be used to back this up. How is Sustainadility and Mabrook complementing each other on that end, basically?
I think that there are two things. Let's look at the digital infrastructure first, and then we have to go back to what Fahad already highlighted is the regulation, right? So tokenization cannot operate in isolation. Not everybody can go out and issue a token which is properly backed by the real world asset, and then that's requires a certain regulatory regime as well. Like when we look at the technology infrastructure, so there are two or three steps, and I'll take it to the example. Let's assume that today one country decide that they want to install 10,000 EV charger across a city, right? And there are three things which are required. Number one, the EV charger itself that need to be installed. Number three, there has to be a certain capital flow, and then the information related with the performance of that particular charge station to the investor. So I take that 10,000 as an example, and I convert that into a 5 charging station as a one single token. And then I can create that token on that Sharia-compliant specific platform, which Mabrook already has under a regulatory regime, let's say in Canada or Dubai or Singapore or Hong Kong or any other country which provide that kind of regulatory regime for that specific purposes. And then I can link to the IoT, the sustainability infrastructure, which can exactly tell that how much energy is being consumed, how many cars or vehicles are being charged, what is the total financial return today in terms of sales, what is the cost and all that. So near real time, investor can see the information of performance related data, not only the operational performance, but the financial and ESG performance of the chunk of those 5 charging stations based on the token which they specifically holding. So that's an identified asset. It's performing there. And then there is a certain performance related data, the operational performance, as well as the financial performance and ESG performance. So that gives a different level of transparency and comfort, not only to the investor, but also to the governments and the regulator who want these EV chargers there. But in additional, it also may provide, if the consent is there, to the actual manufacturer that how their machines are being used, right? This information collectively can also be made public on the website of the government who has started that initiative. So once the data is available and it's auditable, verified data, that gives a very different level of comfort. And once you come to the infrastructure, we are talking about a digital infrastructure right now. Although there's a physical infrastructure which we are installing, which is like the EV charger, but then we create the entire model in a digital form where all that information is accessible and visible to all the relevant stakeholders, which brings a very different kind of transparencies, as well as the comfort and accountability side. And that basically help us to attract more investment in that particular space. So it's all about how we create that data, how we make sure that the relevant stakeholder can see it and they see their relevant information. And that's available as a comfort that it's all auditable and it's coming in a near real time, if not real time. So that is the kind of example which gives you the scenario or a use case, how the entire infrastructure works. Digital infrastructure work to make sure that the capital flow, the ESG initiative, the government requirement, the public requirement, and the utility requirement, everything is clubbed together in the ecosystem. And that's the beauty once we go digital.
Thank you, Sajjeed. I think that gives a lot of clarity to everybody listening of how the process runs. I'll come back to Fahad with a continuation of the same question, but before that, because we touched upon the regulatory side, I'll pick up the question from audiences later, but there's something that I'm very interested to understand. We are talking about regulation, Fahad mentioned it, and you mentioned it. when we are launching something which is digital, absolutely, and anybody sitting anywhere in the world can access it. So when we are talking about the regulations, what kind of regulations are come into effect or are impacted when people are investing or as individual buyers, or when a project is being uploaded for tokenization, or how does that come into play? I can take your views on this, Fahad, first, and then Sajjeed, I'd like your opinion on the same.
Sure. So in the regulatory world, first of all, of course, we need to have a Sharia screening. So the moment somebody interacts with the platform and uh, they want to tokenize ESG compliant infrastructure or an asset, they have to follow the guidelines of the IFE principle. So at platform first regulation we apply, or the compliance we apply after, of course, the KYC, CML, CFT, all that is your Sharia compliance. Once the Sharia compliance structuring is reviewed, approved, then it goes to the financial regulator, which can be the regulatory authority who have prescribed the license, or who are doing the oversight, similar to Mabrook. And once the regulatory or security lawyers and all that, they review the transaction, the structure, the safety and security around it, how the investor would be safeguarded. Takaful will be applied as well in some cases. Once we have a regulatory approval, then the token are minted, and then in the entire journey of token, starting from minting towards transferring to the investor wallet, then investor doing trading, then at the day end, let's say 5 years down the road, the project is closed, we are doing redemption, we're closing out, everything is basically reported to the regulators day and night. Not only that, especially with the assets which you guys will be bringing, on that we will have a ESG compliance as well. So I think not many people are able to do it. We're going to embed that into the token as well. They will have as Sajjeed was saying, we will have an analytics coming in, which will be basically showing the heat map of the ESG compliance as we go. So Sharia compliance, the regulatory compliance, then ESG compliance. So three hardcore parameters applied, and then the user of the platform, they can interact with the platform and they can see the status of it.
Brilliant. Sajjeed, if you want to add something on from the regulatory point of view.
I think whenever we are talking about the investment space, we also talked about that it's a licensed regime, it's a regulated space, right? We cannot go and start doing anything which is not predefined. So the first thing we have to understand, the entire model is basically recreating the way we used to do the investment. That means the regulations need to incorporate these new digital assets and the products for investment and performances. So that's one part. So most of the countries are working towards that, and they have also created the entire ecosystem from a policies to the regulations to the laws to the standards and even the filing mechanism, how you will make sure that the compliance is properly monitored. Number two, in the ESG space, you can't claim anything as a green unless until it's aligned with a very specific definition. And most of the time, the technical term that we use is aligned with the taxonomy. Like countries are having their own taxonomy, or they are adopting a EU taxonomy as a reference point. So when you have to say that it's green, it's passed through all the test of ESG, then those definitions are already there. And then as soon as the definitions are there, somebody has to validate that, audit that. So there is a certain assurance mechanism which is also provided within the regulations. The third part, the Sharia compliance, like Fahad said, that's also, I can't go and say this is Sharia compliant or not. There has to be a proper Sharia board, there has to be a certain process, and those processes need to be reviewed, assured over the period by the third party that it's being implemented. So any transaction which we are doing, it's monitored by the local regulator where it's actually initiated. It's also monitored by the third party or assurance provider that all the laws and the standards based on which we are claiming anything, whether ESG aligned or Sharia aligned, those are there as well. And those auditors or assurance provider are themselves regulated by another body. So the entire space provides a certain level of comfort that it's not me going out and saying something. There is a process, policy, regulation, standard behind that, And then there's a proper assurance mechanism that whatever the claim or data we are sharing, it's assured by the third party, which itself is regulated by another professional body or the government in some cases. So I think these regulatory regimes bring comfort for the investor as well as for the transaction itself, the people and the stakeholders who are involved. But most importantly, for the general public to start adoption of this kind of investment product and the digital asset in general. So regulatory regimes are important. It has to be flexible. It will be evolving, like we are seeing right now. But the right now, as per BCG, there is a $16.1 trillion worth of tokenized assets which are out there. So they are working towards that. If that is the level of tokenization, then that cannot be unregulated regime. And that's the significant difference which Fahad earlier highlighted in terms of the cryptocurrency versus the real world asset backed tokenization.
There's a very interesting question coming from one of the audiences that's very relevant here. I was thinking to park these questions at the extreme end, but maybe we can pick this one up. So he says that a theme that often comes up in investor education, particularly from retail investors, new to both Islamic finance and digital assets. How do you build trust, number one, and financial literacy in a market where both the ethical framework and the technology are unfamiliar? So you're going in the new domain. So we're talking about awareness and how do you bring people to understand this space and get into the adoption?
Fahad, do you want to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, Fahad. Yeah, please.
It's a very good question, and it's a very general question. Like even with Mabrook also in YouTube channel, if you go, like most of our assets are more awareness than anything else. So awareness has to be created, and trust will only come when you adopt something and you try and test it. So I think from our side, collectively, our job will be that to ensure that the entire ecosystem provides all the variables, parameters, which somebody can go flip transparently, as Sajjeed was saying, and ask us question. So the way we have built platform is that you can interact, you can have a direct exchange, you can exchange messages with the not only us but the issuer, just like sustainability. And then what on top of it, you can also raise Sharia related questions, ESG related questions over that, and you can provide the evidences. Beauty of the blockchain is that whether somebody like it or not, the blockchain is an immutable ledger, right? So the moment we are tokenizing assets and we are providing the evidences of the ESG, we cannot divert from there. It is there, it's written on the ledger, it's publicly available, and then I don't think so. Yeah, we will be able to erase it until as quantum computing come in somewhere future. And this is where we see 2 trillion worth of Bitcoin minted today, right? Not regulated. Nobody knows who's owning it, like, right? People are trading it like every day. There's a billions of Bitcoin transaction happening, right? How? Why? Because people just trust it, because they know the moment they buy the Bitcoin, they can trade it. It's there, it's stable, it's been there for more than a decade. So what we are trying to do is that take that like characteristics of that blockchain and maybe a Bitcoin, how they do, how they use the leverage, how they leverage the blockchain infrastructure. We are applying that same model in the baseline infrastructure, but then applying Sharia compliance, ESG, and then regulatory oversight. So now we have a better product coming in, and I don't think so there will be a problem on the trust. It's just like we are going to hit it hard. Demand is there. We know the liquidity is out there. If we are able to tokenize the asset into $1 per token, I don't think so it's a big risk to try. So that would be my like a longer but explanation I had in my mind.
No, that makes complete sense. Sajjeed, I want you to pick the same question up, but that just reminded me of something. A few years back, when we were using digital banking very commonly, like online bank transfers and all these things. And one of these days, I asked my father that why does he go to the bank every time he has to make a transaction? And he says, it doesn't make sense to me. How will I send money to somebody that I'm not holding that amount in my bank, or I won't take it out of the bank and send it? So I had to ask him to make a 500 rupee transfer in front of me, then verify from his friend or whoever he sent it to on a call, And then he sent the 500 rupees back. So, that's the kind of adaptation even our previous generation had to go through when we were talking about digital banking. And these days we don't want to, go to our bank because we know everything is accessible right here on our devices. So that was just on the lighter part. But Sajjeed, your opinion on the question that that he picked up, although Fahad very clearly explained it, but the literacy side of it and the adoption of this.
I think two things here. Number one, we have to understand anybody who is investing money, they are looking forward that how they will use that money in future. So their motivation and the fears are very, very valid because they are investing today for something where they will use that money 5 years, 10 years, 15, 30 years down the road. So the first thing from a financial literacy perspective, it's not that why they should invest in a tokenization. The first thing is that why they should invest. And then it comes to the second part. What is my pocket size today? How I can evolve that one. So there's a complete process around the financial literacy and investment related stuff. And then you can start looking into the different options. So tokenization is a one of the option. It's not the only option, but why it may be more relevant because of its small size and giving you an opportunity to become a part of as an investor in a very large asset, which is skill regulated, and maybe they are big investor like what we call the accredited investors who are also investing in that alongside of with the retail investor or a small investor. So there has to be a certain research to understand the own need of investment and the second what is available in the market. Number two, in today's world with all the technology and digital connectivity, I always suggest that before investing, go and see who else is doing that, what's happening there, what is the history. Now you don't need an expert coming to you and telling you everything. There are a lot of AI agents and the tools who you give your problem and they will give you a reasonable information which you can have to validate. There's always a human in the loop concept there. So you have to validate that, but that will give you the immediate uh, answers to the problems you are trying to solve and the options which are there. And when we are talking about the 16 trillion in tokenization, the market has already shown their trust and confidence already, right? And then, like Fahad very rightly said, the blockchain. If we understand that technology, that's mean that there is a significant trust which may not exist on me or Fahad, but it exists on the technology and the information which is keep coming out. Third part, whenever you decide to invest, don't invest your entire money in a one asset, right? So don't try to do that. Just make sure you are doing enough research and you are creating that kind of investment related or financial related literacy to really plan your options well. But from an information and a trust perspective, just look around within the country, outside the country, that what's happening, how people are using that, what kind of returns it's bringing out, and then start doing it. The best thing, like you mentioned, you ask your father to do it. Once you do it, that's where the confidence is built. So use a small amount to build that one, like Fahad also reflected that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I hope that question answers the question for the audience and gives us a lot of clarity also. Fahad, coming back to you, because we have 15 minutes left for the session. Walk us through the life cycle of a tokenized real world asset on Al-Mabrook, basically. From the moment an institute decides to tokenize to the point where an investor, a small investor sitting in Pakistan or Malaysia or Thailand, holds a fractional position of that. What does that whole journey look like?
Way of showing how tokenization works. So basically, asset will come and then, as Sajjeed was explaining, it has to have its Sharia compliance done, all the Sharia compliance done, and once we have all the regulatory approval, ESG built in, we are minting the token, and that token will be basically a digital ownership certificate also for you. So when you buy token, not only you buy token and it ends up in your wallet, it's a legal ownership certificate as well, and you can go and verify it as well. So we can connect it with the external parties, right? A third party to verify the ownership. So once the tokens are on the pool, anybody can come and they can be anywhere in the world, right? And they can just go to the app. The app is very pretty much self-service. They can go and then they can interact with the app and buy. The moment they buy, we activate the smart contracts at the blockchain, and then we change the ownership of this token from whoever, like an SPV or whatever we have tokenized, to the investor who's buying it. And once they buy it, they can hold it on their wallet. They can keep checking it. They can verify their ESG compliance and whatnot, and then they can, if they want to exit, they can start trading. And everything what we are doing is IP compliant. For example, in trading, we are not allowing any future trading, right? So those kind of checks and balance are there on that. In the entire token life cycle, the Sharia compliance is embedded. So behind the scene at the back office, there will be somebody who's screening it. So once that is done and I have a token in my hand, the question I have a token in my hand, the question again arises that, okay, I have it now. Now what is going on? So anybody can come and they can see the heat map analytics, which is real time. They can see the sectors they have, which are available for the token. Are they Sharia compliant or not? Right? How many tokens are non-compliant? So we are going to provide all the reporting transparently, and then at the sustainability level, the ESG compliance will come. So what sector are there which are green, and what are their ESG compliance. So that will also come, and then they can drill down, and then they can see the impact of it. It's not reactive, it's very proactive, because at the platform level, when we tokenize something and any changes happen, it's a default blockchain protocol that we have to create audits, right, surrounded. So they will have access to the audits as well, like who's doing what changed, right, what happened to my token, where it started, and all that. So I guess that that's a quick answer, visual answer to your question, Hina.
It's absolutely great, Fahad, that you kept that very handy. So, everybody could understand instead of mentioning all the steps. I hope that gives a lot of clarity to everybody listening in the audience. Once again, I'd like to remind you that we'll be moving on to the question and answer session very soon. If there's any question from any specific participant or a general question, please post it in the comments section, and we are going to pick it up from there. Last question. It's a thumb rule. I think instead of me designing a question and putting it out there for you, is there any final thought or perhaps one takeaway or a call to action for not an investment advice for sure, but for the audience sitting in the room from this conversation that they can go back home with? From Sajjeed, we can ask you first and then come back to Fahad.
Sorry, the question is?
So I was just saying that, we have people coming from various backgrounds, various institutions, various industries sitting in the audience right now. If there's one call to action or a thought that they should take with them after the session, what would it be from your side?
I think the main thing is to keep watching this space and start participating in that. Don't be too late. So there are two realities. The climate first and ESG is a reality. Sharia-compliant investment opportunities are opening up, so that's also a reality. The digital assets like tokenization, that's basically helping us to create the entire ecosystem and bring everybody together. There are use cases and the problems which we're unable to solve in the past, but aligning these things can really make those illiquid assets liquid now using the tokenization as one of the key medium. So I think those are the areas I would say are areas to watch and participate, learn about that, talk about that, and make sure you participate in that whenever you can. And but look from an ecosystem perspective, that how this entire ecosystem is evolving. So that would be a one key advice. And Fahad, I would suggest that you should share your current project in progress in Canada, how you have created that, what it took. I think that will give a lot of confidence to people that it may initially is a tough call. People who tried to do that 4, 5 years, 7 years back, But now in the current environment, how it has changed and how you managed to create a great success story in Toronto right now in Canada, using a tokenization and a real estate as one of the key aspects.
Sure, yeah. Um, so it was quite a journey. It was a learning for both like the regulator and us as well, right? Because blockchain again is a new infrastructure, but the outcome is phenomenal. So the way we start is that uh, what is tokenization? We start with that, and then the question were asked where you're going to save that data of a person, right? What will happen and what not. So to cut the story short, people wanted, and they have the same problem, right? They were saying they are skeptical, we don't trust it, we don't trust the Sharia compliance of it. Prove us. So it took us a while to do so. We did some road shows as well. We demonstrated how can you go at the back end when you have the token or you don't have the token, you can go and verify everything. So not only we have to follow the regulatory compliance of showing them the third party valuation of the asset, right, on the platform, but we also have to show them the once they buy the token how they can verify their ownership from the Ontario Land Registry. So we had to do that. It was not on the roadmap. So basically you can literally go into the platform, and once you buy the token you can click on the digital certificate. It will go to the Ontario Land Ministry website. It will verify that your token ID is placed there, right? So those are really good use cases, because that were not available in Canada before us. Um, the real estate was pretty much straightforward project, 5-story building, 12 units rental in Hamilton, Ontario, $100 token each. You can basically go and buy, verify it. You can see the construction happening. All those land registration document, title document, SPV, we have set up all the legal documentation what put on the platform, and then now we are regularly providing the updates to the investors. So it was a great, it was a very great, excellent experience, and demand is really high because in our mind we thought that who's going to buy it, but really once you open it, I had like more people in Nigeria or in Indonesia and Malaysia to buy it than in Canada. But unfortunately, phase one, we could not do it. It was restricted to the Canadian nationals only.
That brings me to the question that's just popped up in the comment section. It says, Assalamu alaikum, thanks for the insightful session. I'd like to ask if Mabrook tokenization investment platform is regional limited or open to investors worldwide. See, that's the beauty of timely questions.
Right now, it's only for Canadian, so it's geo-fenced. But yes, very soon, with our partners here, we are going to launch a global one as well. Inshallah, by summer, that's what we are planning.
Okay, is that something that you're planning in the coming year or so?
Coming this year, inshallah.
Yeah.
Like Sajjeed mentioned earlier that you have to watch this space. What we'll do is, because we'll be sending out certificate of participation to all the attendees, we are going to share the social assets details for Mabrook and Sustainability, and also their respective websites. So you can go and look into the details of both the organizations and how they can help you in the current industry that you're operating in understanding what's happening in the market and how you can, come to invest in these kind of projects in coming days. There is, I think, another question. Yeah. There's another question that says, I'd like to ask the difference between asset-based finance and asset-backed finance in Islamic finance.
That's a really good question. I know why it's coming. You've seen in the banking space. So it has to be asset backed. So asset backing is very important, right? Asset base could be like a bunch of some paperwork, right? And then we start financing over it again and again and again. Not a good practice. So it has to be asset backed. So the way we handle in our platform, I can give you an example. I'll not speak about what is happening in the world, but in Mabrook, and the beauty of tokenization is that once you load an asset and once it's legally approved, right? There's a terminology we call RID, which is the risk evaluation documentation. Once those titles are transferred to SPV and token are minted, there is no way that same asset can be used for anything else. In platform, it's not wide. You cannot simply do that. Even if you do it, let's say if I have the same asset ID tagged to another token, let's say if I'm able to do it, it will be a technically it will not be it will be a nightmare because now we have a duplicate token on the same blockchain chain network, right? So we have controls parameters around it. B, even if we do it, it will be a duplication and everything will be visible. Like you can go to Polyscan and check what is going on.
Done.
There's a question regarding who is regulating Mabrook in Canada, or yet this particular transaction which we just talked about in terms of the real estate and the tokenization. So who is the co-regulator for that?
Sorry, maybe it's me. Can you repeat that question? The voice is
Okay, Fahad, the question is around that who is regulating this particular transaction you
Oh, yeah.
shared?
Ontario Securities Commission.
Okay.
So Canada is a little different than the rest of the world. So we have preventions law, then we have federal laws. And then even if you are tokenizing something in Ontario and you carry Ontario license, you cannot sell it to the other province. You have to have multi-provincial license to do so. So we not only OS, but we spoke to British Columbia Exchange as well. Sorry, Security Commission as well.
Okay, brilliant. I think we're just arriving at the very end of the session. I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation and found this very insightful. Like I mentioned, all the participants will be receiving this certificate of attendance. So in case you were not able to register to the actual webinar links, please make sure your email is with the organizers. I'm going to send you the details of both the organizations. You can get more details. Please connect with Sajjeed, myself, and Fahad on LinkedIn also. So this conversation is not a one-off thing because there will be many follow-up sessions coming on this space. Please feel free to reach out to us in case there is any requirement or any specific conversation you'd like to see coming from this platform. Thank you very much, Sajjeed, and thank you very much, Fahad, for taking time out. Fahad, I understand it was your SERI time, and you just had to rush through this SERI because of us. But I really appreciate all of you being here. We'll catch up soon in another session. Thank you very much.